you K2 fanatics. Ken Ayers, Director of Business Development here for you once again. This is going to be a part of one of our new video segments where we're just going to be updating you on what's going on in the drone industry today. So what's gone on in the drone industry thus far this week is it looks like there's been an issue down in San Diego with a shark bite and a drone operator getting in the way of emergency response vehicles. So now we're going to see how it plays out, but it looks like there's going to be a fine administered in that situation. Additionally, it looks like Business Wire came out with a very good marketing and industry outlook report. I suggest checking that one out. And thirdly, the big one that's happened over the past few days is the House Reform Bill, the H.R. 302 that has just come out and will be affecting our industry, hobbyists, manufacturers, and users alike. And we'll be taking an interview with Ryan of Capital Drones, who will be breaking it down a little bit better for us than I can. And that way you'll be able to mitigate your business through these new regulations that'll be happening. So we're going to be interviewing Ryan from Capital Drones, and here we go, and let's see if we can get you some better information on HR 302.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you. How are you, Ryan?
Good, how are you?
Good to hear from you. Where have you been hiding, man? We missed you at Interdrone. We're missing you at all the shows out here.
I know it. You know, this has been such an absolute busy year, and I just kind of had to say, well, which drone shows can I make it to? And so those have all been drone light shows instead where I'm working.
Hey, no one's blaming you on that one.
We ended, let's see, I was down in Vegas back over Memorial weekend, and then, well, we just did 4 shows down in Novi here last month. And Matt even called me yesterday. He's like, "Can you get the afternoon off?" I was like, "Going on vacation at the end of the week. I got things I gotta get done." He's like, "Crap, we're getting a private plane. We're going down to San Antonio and doing a show tonight and flying back tonight."
I know. I saw that. I saw the post. I was like, "Man, they're moving him."
Oh yeah. He's all over the place right now. And you know, the problem is that these companies, they'll just call at the last minute and say, "Can you do it tonight, tomorrow, blah, blah." And it's like, guys, there's 100 drones that you got to fool around with. It's, you know, you can't just throw them into a truck and be there in 2 hours. It doesn't work that way. It takes 2 hours to load those things.
What do you mean, Ryan? Don't they fly there by themselves from your house and autonomously, and then they do the show and then fly back?
That's waypoint. We're all good.
That's it. I mean, that's what people tell me. They're like, "Hey, can't you just build a drone that picks a surfer up out of the water while he's being attacked by a shark at the same time?"
Right.
I'm like, "Yeah, sure. It's called a helicopter."
Exactly. It's manned, and it takes 3 people to get into it, and it still takes time to get from the heliport.
Yeah, exactly, right? Did you hear about the San Diego thing that happened yesterday or today? The guy got busted.
That he was preventing the helicopter from landing, yeah?
Yeah, that's what the police were saying. He was saying that he wasn't in their way, and the only time he was in the landing zone was when he had to fly back when they told him to land it.
Ah, okay.
So I don't know. We'll see how it turns out. The guy's a former lifeguard, so I would figure he would know all the procedures that, you know, would go on with a shark bite and everything like that.
Right.
But who knows? We'll see. I mean, maybe now. I mean, now the FAA might be going out and starting to actually crack the whip on some people and trying to get a stronghold on this situation.
Well, yeah, and it does sound like that, at least, you know, and you're leading into the bill where that is the intent of this bill. The Congress is saying, you know, go after and enforce, and they're being very particular talking about emergency services, and so that's one of those things that, yeah, they're going to crack down. And we had a couple incidents up here in Michigan where they've done the same thing, where they said, oh, yeah, it was interfering with. Well, the helicopter pilots never saw it. The crew never saw it. It was somebody on the ground saw a drone and called off the helicopter before they got there. And and so then they're saying, well, that was preventing the helicopter from landing. Well, the helicopter hadn't even taken off from its destination, or its point of origin to get to the destination. So it was still, a good half an hour out. And you kind of go, well, wait a minute, are you really interfering at that point?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what even constitutes interference? I mean, they haven't set that parameter, I mean, you could be, if it's up to the discretion of the first responders, I mean, you could be half a mile away and they could say, hey, you're interfering,
Right.
And you might not even know that there's an emergency going on. You could be like, what? I didn't even know. Like, an incident that happened at near my house the other day. We have a lot of oil wells, and one of the oil wells started springing a methane leak, and you could smell it, so all the fire departments and everything, you start hearing the sirens. But if I took my drone off, am I in the way of now all of a sudden am I in an emergency zone and I didn't even know it?
Right.
How am I supposed to know? What if I'm out in the field and something like that guy got bit by the shark and I was already in the air?
Right.
And no one's notifying me, so now, and then I fly back and they're like, hey, you're fined. And you're like, what? Like, what just happened? Well, all right, well, yeah, let's get into the HR 302. So it's I guess you could just start off, like, what is it?
Well, yeah, so the HR 302 is basically it's the FAA getting funding to continue as the FAA for another period of time. So every few years, the FAA's got to have that bill for reauthorization in order to get their cash to keep moving on as an organization and controlling our airspace.
Oh, that's insane. So does that mean that do they have to apply for funding like every year or something like that?
Well, not every year. Instead, the bill lays out all the game plans for several years and gives them different things that they need to do during that time period. So some of it is their budget to say, you are going to have so much budget to do this, to do that, and they physically designate what the FAA needs to do, and at the same time, it's the reauthorization. So it's saying, as a federal agency, we want you to continue to exist, and here's the money that you need in order to continue to do that. Small portions of that money are designated to very specific projects. So a great example is the integrated pilots program for UAS, where they're doing testing at testing centers. So obviously you've got to fund those testing centers. You've got to fund the research that's taking place, make sure that there's staffing, etc. And so Congress designates X number of dollars towards that task. And then from that point, once this is passed at least, then the FAA is going to be able to take that as their budget and determine, okay, we've got 6 testing centers. This testing center should get this much funding. This one should only get this much funding. We're going to, shuffle the deck and put our funding towards our highest priorities, and each priority could be at a different testing site. So that's what they've got to determine once Congress passes this bill, how they're going to spend that money. But the bill itself is telling them, here's the money, here's the coffers that you're going to have to work with.
So how is this going to affect our industry as a whole?
Yeah, so this bill in particular, unlike the last FMRA in 2012, this bill really is very, very comprehensive. I like this word comprehensive for UAS in this FMRA because it's very particular to all aspects of our unmanned vehicles. It goes into the nitty-gritty detail of how government agencies are going to use the UAS. It's going into how testing is going to take place, what notice of proposed rulemakings need to go on for hobbyists and other aspects. It even gets into things of deliveries. So there's a particular section in here that's pretty much guaranteed to be a direct offer to Amazon about deliveries. So each section is detailing this out, whereas the previous FMRA literally said two things: hands off hobbyist regulation, you can't do it, and then do create a set of rules and regulations for commercial use, Part 107 as we know it.
So is the laissez-faire of, hey, I'm a hobbyist, not a 107 pilot, is that kind of ending now? You can't wear the two hats anymore in the single flight?
Well, yeah, so with the introduction of 107, we did see that split, where any civilian aircraft you're operating as a commercial interest was going to have a Part 107 certification, and hobbyists, you had to operate purely as a hobbyist. So that split did take place once 107 came into effect. Now the FMRA had to go through to announce to the FAA that you can create those rules, but it wasn't until 2016, August of 2016, where it actually took place. So that split already has developed. Now what we're seeing with this new FMRA is to say there's actually three little pieces to it. One is we're going to continue with Part 107. That's out there. That's already in the game plan, existing regulation, existing law, and continues forward. In terms of hobbyists, we now have two designations. One, there's the repeal of 336. So people are saying this is the end of the Wild West for hobbyists. I don't know if I buy that. Because we never really had a Wild West. Some people might want to say that we did. But you still had to follow a set of rules. Now, maybe some people are able to say people weren't following the rules, that makes it the Wild West. People not following the rules doesn't make it the Wild West. That makes it an enforcement issue.
Right.
So I will say we already did have some rules. Granted, they weren't enforced very well, so that is out there. But in this current FMRA, we're splitting hobbyists into two separate groups. One is to say, if you're going to act purely as a hobbyist, but you're not part of a community-based organization, here's your set of rules. If you are part of a community-based organization and following their guidelines, and you're going to use a fixed site, thank you AMA, this is your other set of rules. Now I say thank you MMA or AMA, but it also defines what a CBO, community-based organization, actually is, what it has to have in order to be an identified CBO and be valid. So it creates the ability for multiple CBOs to stand up and have fixed site sets of rules, etc., in competition with the AMA. Probably why the AMA is a little upset about it, right? Yeah.
It looks like their toes are getting stepped on and everything. One clarification real quick, just for everyone who's going to be listening. What does FMRA stand for?
Yeah, so it's the the FAA, so it's FAA Modernization and Reform Act.
Oh, okay, all right.
Really saying for the federal agency, this is how you are going to modernize and reform, and this is law. So it gives the details to the FAA, their timelines for modernization, what they need to do to come up to speed to today's dates and technologies.
Right. Okay. And then in the 302, what branches is it going to affect? Is it going to affect? I mean, you already went over the hobbyist. How is it going to affect the professional end users?
Yeah. So from a Part 107 standpoint, probably the biggest section in this is Section 352. And there's some differences here where the FAA is going to publish details of approved authorizations and waivers for all to see and to use and to mimic. And they have to do this within 30 days. So here's a big problem that many Part 107 operators have said is, hey, I'm trying to submit my daylight waiver, and I keep not getting approved. Why is this? Why can't I just grab somebody who's already been approved, see it, mimic it, and submit it? Well, that's great, fine, and dandy, except they can't see it unless they go and they know somebody who has that waiver, and then they can kind of create their own from it. Well, in this particular section, Congress is saying to the FAA, you need to provide that information, good examples of waivers that have already been approved, authorizations that have already been approved, make those public within 30 days of enacting this act so that they can be used by others who are looking to submit a waiver or authorization. And that's really significant. The other one is 90 days later is the update of the waiver process. Now, one of the real, I guess, gut-wrenching feelings is you put your waiver out there and you've not heard anything. You don't know if the FAA has received it. You don't know where you are in line, how much more time it's going to take for you to get that waiver even looked at by somebody at the FAA. And Congress is saying, it's time to end it. And in 90 days, they're saying you need to update the process to have real-time acknowledgement. So you submit that, and you get an immediate reply to say, hey, look, we've received it. And then a real-time look into the status of your waiver. So now I can say, I submitted it 10 days ago. Where am I in the queue? And knowing that helps you kind of plan, especially if you've got a shot coming up, you submitted it 70 days ago, you're 20 days away from your shoot. Do I think I have a shot at really getting my waiver in time, or do I need to reschedule with my client? So those are some significant developments for Part 107 operators.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I am one of those individuals. I applied before Lance came out. I applied for every airport in California, the coastal airports in Oregon and Washington, and then Las Vegas and Bullhead City, Arizona. And I was just another one of those individuals. I mean, I applied for a COW for those areas, the certification of waiver for the airspace. So it was taking me up to a year and even past a year for those things to get approved. And I'm still talking with the FAA because basically when Lance popped up with the apps, they told me that my applications don't matter anymore and I should just use Lance. And I say, oh, well, wait a minute, pump the brakes there, because the reason why I went ahead with the cows was because someone from the FAA told me to continue with the COAs and the cows, because that way I wouldn't have to ask for authorization from the apps like Skyward and things like that.
Right. Yep. And I should say there is one more piece to that particular section, 352, that's even further help, is talking about emergency exemptions.
Mm-hmm.
Think about search and rescue or a disaster, tornado disaster, or fire, or what have you. The emergency exemption process is going to be able to give you an immediate type of waiver or airspace authorization that otherwise you're sitting 30, 60, 90 days. It doesn't do you any good to respond to a hurricane that just hit.
Yep, no, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, or flash flood or earthquake, anything like that. And that's why you can't, in some of the products, you have to unlock them, you have to call the company and unlock them and things like that. And heaven forbid it be a Saturday or a Sunday when that kind of stuff goes down. So unfortunately, disasters do happen on the weekends.
Right.
Okay, well, is there any other particular section or anything of the 302 that you would like to dev in anymore, or have we expunged a lot of our information out of you so far?
Well, I think the only other kind of thing to consider here is if we look at the regulations again, I use that word comprehensive. This is very comprehensive, and it goes through and really creates a lot of different regulations for unmanned aerial vehicles that we hadn't seen previously. So in terms of what's going to come out of this, I do expect this to pass the Senate. I hate to say that. I think that there's some better language that could be used, some different things that could be considered. But as this comes through, we're going to start to see several notice of proposed rulemakings, NPRMs. And that's the process by which any federal agency has to submit their proposed regulations to the public for comment. And then the public has a certain number of days where they can state why they are in support of the regulation, why they're against the regulation, give their thoughts and feelings about what's being proposed that is going to impact them or their business. With this, because I think you're going to see a number of NPRMs, it's going to be very important for people that have any vested interest in flying, whether or not you're a hobbyist or a Part 107 operator, to really pay attention to what's coming out of the FAA and then look at how those rules are going to impact you and make comments. When we saw Part 107 come out, there were only something like 2,800 comments. People just really did not comment and give their information as to why they were in support or what they were against. In converse, right, when the special interpretation for the model aircraft rule came out, which was another NPRM, there were so many comments that the FAA still has not closed that process. They have not yet figured out how to respond to all the comments that came in regarding just an interpretation of 336 for hobbyists. Now think about that. If they couldn't close that NPRM, or let's say they could close that NPRM, we might have seen some different regulations come out of that 336 and the understanding. So giving some more enforcement action to it. Or if we had those same number of folks replying to 107 regulations, maybe the FAA would say, hey, you know what? Night flying is not so unsafe. We're going to try to create or amend our proposed rule to allow it. Flight over persons might not be such a mighty risk, and we've seen that from our comments. We're going to shift and alter our regulation as a result. That can happen, And I think that's what people need to take out of this bill, is to say NPRMs are going to happen. It's coming. Be prepared for them. Read them closely, and really detail your comments to those particular regulations, because they can change. The FAA has been able to use those comments to reinterpret things and alter the regulations to match.
Do you know where people can find out the information to comment on those documents?
Oh yeah, so the FAA, well, any federal agency put that. I want to say it's regulations. I'm going to have to regulations.gov is the site as to where all the NPRMs are going to be posted. You can search for a particular rule at that location. I'm certain that as a NPRM is announced, you're going to see it in your AMA magazine, or several Part 107 sites are going to pop up to say, hey, a new NPRM is out, you might want to comment. So start to pay attention to the sources that you use for your UAS news, and as well, do a frequent log on to regulations.gov and keep track of what's going on with the FAA. You never know, and you only have a limited amount of time to respond, so take that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you want to tell some of the listeners out there about your company, Capital Drones?
So yeah, I've had Capital Drones, and I've kind of backed away from a lot of my activities just because I'm so busy with everything else. But I do enjoy flying, and I try to help out as many businesses with flying UAV as possible. Right now, my focus is really on lobbying and advocating for drones. So any chance that I get, I'm talking to folks who are decision makers and trying to tell them one thing in particular, that drones and UAS, as we call them, are the safest aircrafts in the sky, bar none. Where over the course of the 80 plus years of the AMA, the number of fatalities related to model aircraft is in the single digits. And that's the total for that entire span of time, versus things like helicopters. Routinely for the U.S. alone, it's an average of 20 fatalities per year. On top of that, you still have serious injuries, critical injuries, and the amount of property damage is in the millions, if not billions, at this point. So, a 4-pound piece of plastic is still above and beyond in terms of safety than a helicopter. And we can compare that to things like hot air balloons and ultralights, even hang gliders. So giving that message is trying to counteract any of these overzealous regulations that happen at a state level, at a local level, and hopefully we aren't seeing it at the federal level. But if you do see some type of regulation pop up in your locality, a state or a local ordinance coming through, look to fight that. And if you need some help, please give me a call. And I'm able to try to fight as hard as I can to make sure that UAS get recognized as a safe vehicle.
Yeah, and where do people find you at?
So mainly I'm on Facebook. You can find me at Capital Drones, or you can find me at Ryan Latourette. And I'm happy to accept all friend requests, and I try to stay in touch as much as possible in Messenger or hit my timeline, and I'm happy to respond. I'm also one of the admins for the UAV legal news and discussion groups, and I certainly encourage anyone to join that group We have a treasure trove of files with information about UAS regulations, things of interest in terms of ordinances and state laws that help you navigate as you plan to fly your drone in whatever location it may be. We're a worldwide group, so we do see laws from other nations in there as well. And we try to clarify for folks if they have questions about the existing regulations. What does it mean to fly? What does directly over somebody mean in the Part 107 regulation? We're here to help with that. So every opportunity to educate, we're happy to do it.
Absolutely. I will attest to that group. I'm active. I ask questions in UAV legal news, right? That's what it is?
Yep.
So check that out on Facebook.
So yeah, hit him up too.
Yeah. Find Ryan and Capital Drones. He'll be more than happy to consult for you. Pay the man, please. I mean, we're all trying to live in this industry, and it's new for a lot of us, especially guys like Ryan and myself who have been in it for a while. We do love some of the other ways we make money, but we would love to make money just doing drones. So please, if you give him a call, at least tip the guy or something. Give him a plug. But again, Ryan, I thank you for your time. As usual, you did a spectacular job on informing us and our listeners on this new situation that's happening in the drone world, and we look forward to seeing what comes out of it, and we look forward to speaking to you again in the near future.
Absolutely. Always great to talk to you, Kent, and keep at it with K2. Fabulous product, and I'm hopeful to get to fly one here someday soon.
Hey, we hope so too. All right. Well, thanks again, and really appreciate it. And who do the Spartans have this week?
They are playing Northwestern.
Ooh, the Wildcats were pretty good last week against Michigan.
They should have beaten Michigan. I'm heartbroken that they didn't. I won't be heartbroken when they lose their second game in a row, right?
There you go. Yep, exactly. And I'm sure you won't be very heartbroken when the Spartans are running the flag through Michigan there.
Absolutely.
All right, well, have yourself a great day, and thanks again for taking the phone call with us.
You too. Thanks, Ken.
All right, have a great day.
That's it.
Bye.